Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for an all new episode recap of today's Days of Our Lives, May 8th, 2026. And listen, days have been bringing it every Friday since May started, and I'm just excited to see how next week even turns out because they're in for a shakeup in Salem. But let's get into it. Anna and Tony are here for the will reading. Of course, they grace us from whichever luxurious place they were just coming from or vacationing in. So they come in looking fabulous. And of course, Anna is not really here to really go through yet another farewell. It's like a longer farewell tour than what Elton John has been doing, as according to her. So, Tony's just saying, look, this one is very important. This is the last one, I promise. And this is really a passing of the torch from one generation to another. And she said, is it really anything to pass on to? But anyway, they said, look, we're gonna have, a portion of his inheritance. So it's definitely important. Of course, she ain't complaining about that. That's what I'm saying. Like, y'all complain about how Stefano is evil and the big bad wolf and all that, but yet still, y'all are happy to go get a piece of his fortune, eh? But anyways, a little housekeeping. It was really not much in the beginning episode apart from Kat and Chad talking a little bit. She was picking some flowers for the setup. At some point she talked to EJ. Thanks her for everything she has done, and Chad was in the background overhearing them wanting to have dinner and some dessert this time. And let's see how this engagement between him and Chad go. But who should care, because Chad is going out with his ex, so why should he even care if EJ wanted to dibble and dabble with somebody that he's wasn't even in a relationship with? Now, it was just really everybody getting together and Chad interacting with Anna and Tony. At some point Tony has a word with Theo, and we'll get into that at some point. Trying to remember, because there was a bit of small conversation. When it's a grand thing, there's mini conversations. It's really hard to keep up with all of them, but let's try to stay on track. Now, Leo, of course, had to just, involve himself in today's event, and he's out there pretending to bird watch, but really we know he's just trying to catch any kind of drama that may unfold with this will reading. Kat sees him when she was picking flowers, and she's saying, like, what are you doing here? So he explains that he's doing just that, and she said, you shouldn't be here. This is trespassing. And he said, it's not really trespassing if Chad is going to own the place tomorrow, and he is my boss. So she said, yeah, but I don't want anything to go down here. And furthermore, like, if you get caught, I can't protect you. So anyway, she tells him to stay away from what's going on, just to really stay put. But Leo, he's not going to listen. So Kat, she goes back in the house she was setting up. As I said before, she and EJ talk a bit. Now EJ went to the dining room. Everybody else was there, getting something to eat before the will reading. She does go down to the tunnel, and she ends up seeing Leo come through, because Leo saw Rita coming out of that exit, and he's not really privy to that area, so he decided to snoop around. So he and Kat were just talking, and he realized that Kat is up to something. She claimed she was getting wine for the reception, but he remembered what Dimitri said about her being an ICE agent, and now it makes sense. She probably is snooping on EJ to find out what's going on. Kat was playing it off, saying that her life is bored, and she didn't really give away everything, but she did give Leo the suggestion that she is spying on EJ. She's, when she was with Clyde Weston, she has to protect her family or siblings. So Leo's like, I'm trying to find out dirt on EJ as well. And we can help each other. So they decide to go through a door. I don't know what else happened after that. So Kat was saying, if anything happens, I'm gonna do the talking. Now before that happened, EJ was downstairs with Lexi, and Rita was there. He's catching up Rita to what's going on with the will reading, and that she'll be going because of course she's one of Stefano's loyal servants. So she is just looking forward to getting her inheritance. And they talk about Rolf. Of course, Rolf is not going to be seen at the reading, given that he's wanted for what happened with the kidnapping Stephanie and Owen Kent. So, of course, he will be getting his share for his service to Stefano. Rita did ask him, what happens if Lexi does not really come back to the living? So he said that the mission must go on. There's other people that we can really experiment on. We just keep experimenting till something happens. Some point they go upstairs, EJ, I guess he talks with everybody else. Rita does talk with Tony. Of course, Anna is not liking it. She doesn't really like it. She's playing fake, laughing with them. She's calling Rita Tony's work wife, and they're laughing it up, and they go into the next room, and Chad is like asking Anna what's going on. So Anna says she detests that woman because she feels as if Rita has eyes for Tony. I don't know what that's about. I didn't catch that, but she said if anybody pushes me off a boat, it's that woman. So Kristen runs into Marlene, and Kristen's like, oh, this must be my lucky day. And Marlena said likewise. So she, Marlena talks about how she just visited Rachel, and she loved having time with her granddaughter, and she can't believe Kristen would have done this. And she said, you really must have thought that you was gonna block me away from seeing my granddaughter. And she said, if only she knew what you did, she wouldn't feel that same way. And Kristen's saying that Rachel needs all the family she needs, and of course they go blow for blow. And Kristen's talking about how she doesn't need you guys. Everybody knows that I will do everything and anything for my daughter, and nobody or nothing else matters in the world. You should know that. So Marlene is saying that, I really do hope that Rachel inherits most of Brady and John's qualities, being kind, gentle, all of that, and not from your side of the family, it being evil. So Kristen said, how it feels to really, be judgmental, knowing that you have bad apples in your family. Like, look at what happened to Sammy and how Johnny was conceived. And, Marlena was saying that Sammy was raped, and at the end of the day, Johnny turned out to love both parents, and it is what it is. Like, we just got to move on. So she's comparing Johnny and Rachel, which I don't understand why she would do that. And then she brings up EJ about, EJ being the cause of all these problems, and, Johnny almost taking him out. And she said it didn't happen, and thankfully it did not happen, and that would have been a tragedy. So Marlena brought history on us, talking about how Stefano was the one that paid Susan to conceive EJ, or something like that, and bring the baby to Kristen, because Kristen had a miscarriage with John. I remember she had a miscarriage with John, and that really messed her up, but I didn't remember that whole thing about Susan and how EJ was conceived, so I had to do some digging on that for sure on my off time. Now, that hit a sore topic for her. And she said, I don't understand how Stefano or John saw anything in you. And then she asked her about going to the will reading, and she said, no, thanks. And she said, maybe you needed to be there. Maybe you're afraid of Stefano, and that's why you're not coming. And of course, Marlena didn't want to admit that to Kristen, but we already know she kind of have, some kind of disdain or fear towards Stefano. They were just going back and forth on jobs and who did what and who is what and all of that. So we're moving on. Now Tony had a conversation with Theo and asked him, like, look, you said over the phone briefly why you decided to quit the mirror, but I needed a definite explanation, because you and I, you were okay with taking up the position, and I can't understand why you would just walk away from it. And Theo said that, a lot has happened. I got injured, and that really made me think about things. I don't really want to be around, working for the mirror and get myself in any more predicaments. And Tony's thinking maybe EJ has something to do with it. He has something over his head, and then maybe EJ, set this up because now his son is running the mirror. That's what he wanted in the beginning. So he feels as if EJ has something to do with it. And Theo is saying, look, this was all my decision. I wanted to do this to just, protect my family and all of that. So Abe came in on that note, and Abe is saying he agrees with it. And I'm saying, oh, Abe, if only Theo knew that you were also behind it somehow. So anyways, Tony leaves and Abe talks to Theo. Theo talks about how he's nervous. Now I remember a conversation. He was also saying that he was nervous with Chad as well. And Chad said, just picture everybody in your underwear. You are going to do very well. He asked if there's anything he can know about the will before it's read. But Theo said, no, you have to just wait until the will reading happens. Back to Abe and him. Abe said that his mom would be proud of him for his choices and who he is as a man. And Abe is just here to just really collect Theo's inheritance, well, Lexi's inheritance for the sake of Theo. And yeah, they share a warm moment about it all. Now the will reading is getting in place. Kristen finally shows up, and she overheard what Tony and Anna were saying to EJ. They were saying how sorry they are, what happened to Johnny, that he's gonna be okay. And they talk about, this young woman and what she did to him. And Kristen comes in and said that the woman offed herself. The poor girl off herself, and they're sorry to hear that. Now EJ is a side-eyeing Kristen because he has a bone to pick with her, but they just glare at each other for now. So EJ also let them know that jet has chartered in from Alemania, so it could be anybody coming in, Megan or Dimitri. So Tony's saying maybe we need to lock the doors, or the tunnels, Kristen said. So they started sitting down. Oh, Chad did ask Kristen how Rachel's doing, and Kristen said, you're the only person in Seven-Sword family that really asked. So Chad said he wanted Thomas to go visit her, and Kristen accepted the idea. Now they all started sitting down, and lo and behold, we see Harold. Like, hi Harold, we have not seen you since for years now. I have not seen a butler show up, so it's great to see Harold. Harold is just coming for the earnings at this point, as he should. But I think he should get a discounted inheritance, because of all the times people let themselves into the Demera mansion, and he's not there to open the door. He didn't let them in. He's not doing his job. He's slacking off. But anyways, he's there, and Rita comes as well, and we have a few guests that come in. Now, while the will is being read, Theo goes over it, and Theo said that the reason why Stefano chose him as the executor is because of his good nature, of that he's very unbiased, that he's not out there for himself, and he will be very fair. Now Abe was in agreement with that. He didn't choose EJ because EJ is really the most like him, and even though EJ has some good about him, he just knew that EJ would do what EJ would normally do, so he didn't want him to be executor. Of course, Kristen's there laughing it up, but then Stefano also said a comment towards Kristen as well, that she would have done what she did. So he know how his kids would have acted. Now, the will is really as such that the money will be divided among the siblings. Whoever is deceased before the will, it will be divvied up to their progeny, their children. If they don't have no children, it will be divided among the living heirs. They also talk about the properties, how they're going to be divided equally amongst everybody, and if they should be sold, that they need to be a discussion, amicable discussion between all the kids. Of course, Kristen saying that will have never happened. So that happened. There were some few guests. Marlena came in unexpectedly, and she said that she's just going to face Stefano and see what he really has to say. So Theo said to her that it was just really a gift. So Rita gave her a gift, and she opened it, and it was just really this chess piece. So she was puzzled at it. Everybody was puzzled at what's going on, and that's really it for her and John. I think it's more to it, but anyways, that wasn't the only guest that came in. We see Gabby come in, and she's claiming to say that Philip flew into Alemania, spoke with Ivan, and Ivan admitted that, Vivian forged the signatures, so she's still married to Stefan, so she is entitled to some of his inheritance, cha-ching, as she said. So EJ finds it hard to believe, Tony finds it hard to believe, Kristen thinks that's fraudulent, but she said it's a great play on her part, something that she would have done. Theo believes her, of course Theo believes her, but EJ said that they will, take it up at some point. He asked Rita to look into it. So, what else happened? Yeah, that was really it. trying to remember anything else in the will reading. Anna did go out too because she was having a headache and she was just tired of it and she needed to lie down. She went out with Marlena. I also forgot that Stefano also left something for his loyal servants, Rita, Dr. Rolf, Harold, a place for them to retire. If they just choose to retire, that they have a place to retire in the area of their choice, as well as a trust fund that will be set up for them to just, basically be secured for the rest of their lives. He thanks them for all the loyalty and all the service that they have bestowed to the family for years. And he, that was good. Wow. So they're wrapping up this will reading now. Everybody got their glasses and EJ don't want to think about what the whole Gabby thing means. So he's saying, for now, let's just cheers to Stefano. So everybody grab a glass and cheers to the big man himself. And while they're doing that, apart from Abe, because Abe doesn't have a glass, he doesn't want to cheers to him for anything. So lo and behold, Lexi comes out of the tunnels. I don't know if Leo and Kat opened the door for her to escape, but she came out and everybody's jaw is open. Like, what does this mean? Even Abe is the most surprised on his face. The most surprised look on his face, and Theo, of course. But lots of questions, and I can't wait for next week how this is gonna go, how this is gonna provide reactions from the Demare family, from Abe, especially Theo. Theo and EJ already knew what's up, but for them to know that she's walking and really alive and up, this is something. For the rest of them now, they're gonna be looking at EJ like, what the hell is really going on? So that is it for today's episode, guys. Comment below your thoughts. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to my channel. I will see you guys next week. Have a wonderful weekend.